what do we really need? Because at the end of the day, we cannot, if I've got great credit, I could probably get a lot of money right now. But at the end of the day, I got to pay that back. And if you're like me, I set up systems to protect myself from myself, because if I have money, I'm like, ooh, what are we going to buy? And so I nestle everything away to harder spots for me to get to it so that I can save to spend and all that kind of stuff. But what I don't want anyone us to do is invest 100% of our future profits in paying off a loan to the SBA, right? That's not why we're in business. Nobody signed up to be a non-for-profit, I hope. And then last but not least, really start talking about how do we stay connected. Staying connected to our team and staying connected to our clients. Because for those of you on the webinar today, we got into business for a reason. Over time, we've learned a lot. And our stylists are not as savvy when it comes to business or government or anything that's going on right now. And we have to help them feel safe, and we have to help them navigate, and we have to keep them checked in, even if they're not on our payroll, right? Because if they're on unemployment right now, we can't make them work. But at the same token, we can do some fun things to keep our team connected so that we have the ability to move as a unit forward when it's ready to reopen. And so those are some of the things we'll talk about today. The first thing that I really want us to commit to thinking about together as a team of salon owners, is when I looked at the first 2 weeks of calls with my clients, from when I closed the salon to helping all of them close, I think the hardest thing for me was the emotional side of it. Like the hardest thing for me, after I made sure my air conditioner was on 78 and, I did everything I needed to do to have as least amount of expenses coming out of the business while I was gone. When I put the alarm on and locked the second salon, knowing like we were done for a while, that was heart-wrenching. And it's so funny because I've had days where I'd like to lock the salon and walk away, but it certainly wasn't in that way, shape, or form, right? And so what I want us to really start to think about in this is, how do we really make smart decisions? How do we start to take the emotion out of what we're dealing with? Because there's a lot of emotion in this, and we're creative, emotional people naturally. And how do we start really beginning to have a plan in how we make our decisions going forward? And so, again, what's important is that we have to be able to be smart, be tactical, and really make appropriate decisions that'll set us up for the future and set us up for reopening. And so what I'd like us to do today as a team is really, first off, decide as a team, if you're going through, I think all of us know when our emotions get high, right? Do you know when your emotions get high? Give me at least a nod or a nod. All right, I know a few of you definitely do, because I know you. And when our emotions get high, as everybody says, intelligence gets low. And so I want us to commit together, first off, step one, to decide that when we feel our emotions get high, that we're going to walk away from whatever decision we're making, so that we can take a minute to get informed, get our thoughts together, and make the right choice. Because for me, and I'm going to share with you a tool I use, and I'm sure you guys have your own tools, but this has been really helpful for me in really going through each area of my business and asking more questions so that I can really think about the choices I'm making right now. Are they right for the business? Are they right for my client? Are they right for the team? And are they financially right for me as well? And if they're going to cost me more or less, how do I maneuver? Because I can't imagine I'm going to have more margin coming out of this short term than I had before I closed. And so the last thing I'll show you here is what I'll call the decision quadrant. And I'm going to flip the screen, and you're welcome. I'll pause at it for a minute. You're welcome to take a picture of it. But it's a quadrant that gives you, and I've got to move you guys because I can't read it because of where I have your heads, takes you a little bit farther than pros and cons. And I'm going to walk you through an example with it just super quickly. But one of the things that we're going to be doing, my team doesn't know yet, is we're going to be looking at potentially going cashless. coming out of reopening, right? And one of the things we've thought of, and particularly being in Brooklyn, New York, if you've ever gotten to visit, and if not, come another time. Right now is probably not the best, but somewhere in the future. But what I want you to think about is, we want to create an environment that is safe for our team. And in Brooklyn, there's still a lot of businesses that are cash only. So we do cash gratuity. We actually take a decent amount of cash a day, even though we're mostly credit card. But we want to, coming out of COVID-19, I don't want to touch anybody's money. Like, I don't know where it's been. I don't know where you had it. And I don't want to touch it. So we started to ask ourselves, if we're going to go cashless, what does it look like? Well, what happens if we do, right? Are all of our systems set up to be able to do it, right? And we worked with our software provider because now I've launched a new app and they can actually pay at the app in the chair. So in being able to do that, what's cool there is now we can close out the sale, and they, with their credit card they have on file, they can just pay the transaction. They don't have to touch my credit card machine. Right? And so we had to kind of ask ourselves, well, like, how would that work? What more does it cost us? What's my average amount of gratuity? I think, if I took the service sales that we did every week and what I think they get in gratuity, what's that going to cost me in merchant fees? And just kind of went through each quadrant so that we could really start to say, what am I missing? And that's the thing for me that I love about this exercise, because if you've ever been in one of my classes, particularly the leadership ones, I do an exercise called the birds. And I'm an eagle. I need just enough information to make a decision. And I'm like, cool, that sounds great. Let's go. Where an owl is the one that's going to ask every decision known to man, right? They're going to want, like, what if this? What if that? What if this? I don't think of all that stuff. So taking the time to slow down and go through something like what you see on your screen right now really helps me think of the things that to me aren't important, because the concept sounds good and the money's not that much more. You know what I mean? Because then I'm ready to jump. And so I think from a learning perspective, this has been an effective thing to help me slow down and really think things through before I move forward. All right, now I have to give me a second to move you guys back so I can move the screen. All right. So now the meaty stuff that we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about financial decisions. And the most important thing for us to do right now is to make smart financial decisions. And when we think about those smart financial decisions, there's two things we're going to talk about today, and one we'll talk about as we get into our third webinar. We'll talk about a couple concepts next time. First off, we have to focus on our budget. And when I think about focusing on our budget, there's a couple things that I want us to keep in mind. We're going to talk about a plan for our cash, and then let me go, and then increase sales. Let me go to the next slide because that's where my stuff is. When we think about focusing on a budget, by a show of hands, how many people on the call have a budget for their sales every week? All right, cool. How many of us have a budget that they know based on their sales exactly what they should spend in front desk help? All right, how many of us know based on our sales exactly how much we should spend in apprentice help? Right? So we've got some opportunity there. And, I feel like Shannon and I, and hopefully my clients, are going to be moving into this new reopening that I'm going to walk away and I have a plan for, if my business is normal, how can I be more efficient? Cool. That's always better because I can make more profit, right? And if I have to pay back a loan, maybe I can pay back the loan with the extra margin I made, not out of my own personal income, right? But I also want to have a plan that if I have 3 incredible weeks and then my new normal is 10% less than it used to be, I want to know what I should be spending when I see that coming, instead of waiting till all of a sudden 3 or 4 payrolls later, I realize the account's dry. And I think for a lot of us on the call right now, the account's already dry enough. We don't need it any drier, right? And so I think that's where I want us to be able to walk away and really think about that. And I'll take you through some detail in just a second. We're also going to talk about how to minimize your cash out while you're closed. We'll also talk about evaluating your cash position and then identifying the gap. So if you're in a great cash position now, bonus, nice job. If you're not, then you'll have a real specific number or real specific questions you can ask your accountant so that you have the ability to know exactly what you need to borrow so that you don't end up upside down in your borrowing if you have that opportunity. Okay. I know I have one of my clients that are accountants like, you need 18 months of cash. And I'm like, what? How are you have a 4-chair salon. How are you going to pay that back? And I don't want us to be in that type of situation. So when we think about focusing on our budget, what I want us to think about first, and I'm going to take you through a couple tools in a minute. And for my clients on the phone, you've seen this or on the webinar. What I want you to think about here is I want you to use your accountant, right? And if you're a numbers geek, awesome. Bust it out in Excel, have some fun. But if you're not, you pay an accountant to do your taxes every year, put him to or her to work right now, okay? And I want you to look at the business you did last year. Again, if you're doing better, awesome. Things are easy, right? But if our business drops after the rush by 10%, what does your cost structure need to look like? A perfect example, hourly employees. You know, if I'm used to doing $2 million a year and running the overhead I can on $2 million a year, if I end up the end of this year at 1.5, I can't spend as much. Would we agree? Yeah, right? So I want you to have a tool, and I'm going to show you one I use with my clients that will allow you to look at how much you need based on what your weekly sales volume is. And I love to work in weekly sales volumes just because that's what I've done since I was 15 running my first salon. And so it's just, you know, I know if I do 20 grand a week or 30 grand a week or whatever, what that number is, you know, it's easy for me to work on. When I think of monthly numbers, that's not my gig. So if you love monthly numbers, you could have your accountant turn it into a monthly number thing for you. But we've got to have clear guidelines. And if we're taking on a loan, our benchmarks have to change, right? Because we can't continue spending the same amount we did before if we're going to now take on another loan and we've got to pay more money out. And we've got to be really conscious of this. And your accountant not only can help you run a model that says, okay, if your business is 10% left, what does this look like? And how much, I'll give you some benchmarks. And how much payroll would that mean, right? And what does that break down in hours? And again, I'll give you an example that you can take a picture of so you can either build it yourself or ask your accountant to do it for you. But it'll give you some examples. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Oh, let me take some questions. I'm sorry. I was going to go to the chat before I go to the next slide because I'm sure I have some questions already. And if you can put those in the chat, and Christine will ask them.
Nothing yet. Give it a minute here. People will type in.
I just figured, I think there's 100 of us on here. That's a little hard to get everyone to ask questions.
All good for now.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to keep rolling. Put them in the chat if you think of something as you go, and then we'll have another spot to ask questions in the next few minutes. All right. So the next thing that I want us to think about is, again, as we go through this process, we want to have a plan for our overhead, right? And that plan for our overhead is anything that's an hourly employee, right? Because, you know, our stylists, if they're paid commission, their pay adjusts based on the volume that we do, right? They have a really big week, we pay them lots of money. If they have a really slow week, they don't make a whole lot of money, right? That conceptually manages itself most of the time if we're on commission. Our hourly employees don't, right? If we have a week that drops, all of a sudden we're taking money out of our kitty to cover payroll because we didn't manage that cost, right? So apprentices, assistants, whatever you call them, associates, they're all the same thing. When I look at apprentices, I'm also not looking at traditional shampoo people that don't do anything but shampoo. I'm looking at people who are, you know, do blowouts, do glazes, you know, do things to help the stylist be more productive. And so I typically budget our clients at 3% of their service sales to go towards their apprentice staffing, okay? There's some exceptions to that, which I won't talk through today, but if you have questions on that, please put them in the chat. What we'll do for specific questions is any question we didn't get answered today, I will answer. So if you have some specific questions, I'll answer those as well. But this does not look at a model if you have dedicated apprentices that work with individual stylists. This looks at, you know, you have 2 or 3 or 4 top producers, and then you get most of the support, but there's still someone who helps the salon. Okay. And so here, and I have this going down to 40,000 a week. The picture wanted to be something we could all read. So $15.50 happens to be what I pay apprentices, not because I like to and not because I'm kind, but my minimum wage is $15. So here I know if my salon only does $10,000 this week, I know I can only run 19 apprentice hours. And so what I'm going to do going out of the first 3 weeks, we're going to do some other things that we'll talk about next time, because I think we will have a rush, right? After that, I'm going to start issuing a schedule every other week so that I can flex easier to the business. And I'm also going to have some on-call shifts where I'm not quite sure I have enough business for an apprentice right now, but that way they know they might get called in. So that I have the ability to flex. If we're busy, then they're going to have all the great shifts they want. But if they're not, I already have a mechanism in place to make sure that I don't overspend. Okay. Oops, I forget. I can't forward with my little arrow thing. I have to forward with the thing on the screen. The next one, I call my front desk concierge because I don't have a front desk. And so, again, receptionists, front desks, professionals, concierge, whatever you like to call them. Oop, that's actually wrong. I benchmark 5%. I apologize, I grabbed the wrong slide. I benchmark 5% of my total sales for my front desk. That does not include a manager. This one says 3% because I have one manager who is a front desk and manager. So I give her less of a budget for her other front desk people. My one where my manager is a working hairdresser, I give her more because she's obviously not answering the phone. So I apologize for including the wrong one. But you get the concept. This is total sales, not service sales, because they help support the whole business. And again, we pay receptionists $18.50 just because I can't get anyone that can do the job effectively for that in New York City for anything less than that. Okay. I'll give it a second in case anyone else needs to get pictures of how that works. And again, the benchmark there typically is 5%. And if my manager also works the front desk, then I lower that budget because she's covering some of those shifts to the 3%, which is why you see that one. The last but not least that I want you to think about, and my hope is we don't need this, but when I opened our first location, one of the things that I thought about in opening that location is, all right, I'm opening, I have no business. I didn't have people with a clientele. We were starting from scratch. So I needed to be able to know if I had 8 new stylists when I opened, I needed to be able to manage, were they making me money or costing me money? And what I call that, just in case we don't use the same terminology, is did they commission? Okay. And so when I started to get those first couple phone calls of, ooh, I'm scared. Are you sure you're going to be open? I think I'm going to wait till this is over. And our business started dropping. I actually pulled this out because I hadn't used it since we opened our first location and started to look at what does my team need, especially for new stylists that I have on board. Because like I have 3 right now that have been with us less than 6 months. So as people started to get scared, new clients weren't coming in. It was the regulars that I'm getting my hair done before we're locked up. You know what I mean? Those were the ones that were coming in. And so I had to watch really quickly how many hours I was giving a stylist so that if they weren't commissioning from it, it wasn't costing me payroll. So in this example, if your commission rate is 40%, if you decide to make something like this, and for any of my previous clients or you've attended my classes, you're welcome to reach out to me. Anybody can, actually. I'll have a slide at the end and I can talk you through how to do this. But if I pay them 40% commission, my base rate is $15 an hour because that's my minimum wage. So I pay all employees hourly or commission, whatever greater. And so this let me know, you know, my average employee works between 32 and 35 hours. And so this let me know that at 40% commission, they needed to be doing $1,300, and I'll call it $25 in hair a week to commission. And so what I recommend that you do coming out of this is pay attention to any stylist you have in that wheelhouse, just so you know the number, right? And if everybody's doing $2,000, $3,000 weeks, this doesn't matter. But if if you've got some people that didn't have a great clientele and your new clients aren't coming back as a banshee in the beginning, it'll allow you to just not burn some of your cash that you don't need to burn up front, if that makes sense. And again, I'm a planner. I have plan A through J of everything. And my husband always laughs. He's like, well, why don't we wait till we get, I'm like, nope, I need plan A from J. Then when we get the information, I know which plan to pull. And it just really allows me to work through the plot process. It makes me feel like I have clarity. And for me, it helps take away some of the fear. Okay. And I think we're going to go to another question slide. What questions do we have so far?
A couple questions came in, and this might be something that you're about to get to.
That's okay.
Having to pay FICA on tips from Paul.
I know, Paul. So yeah, I do, right? And I can tell you, so for those of you who don't know me, for those of you who know me, I am what I am. But I spent most of my career in corporate America until I got tired of accountants and lawyers and jumped off the corporate ladder running salon chains and went into business for ourselves. My husband and I did. And so I'm relatively conservative. If I'm going to get sued, I want it to be something super good, like super good and a great story to tell. So even though I do cash gratuity today, I will tell you, I force report 10% of their service sales as gratuity. They don't have a choice. They can, I give them the form quarterly that they can report more. They never do, which is fine. But I come from one, I'm not going to set myself up for an audit. And two, as I told them the second week we were closed and I was starting to get all the unemployment sheets in, aren't you glad you have 10% more income now than you had before? Because unfortunately, in a time like now, that extra income is benefiting them a little. And I got all the nice, yes, mom, we're very grateful now, text back, right? So yeah, I do pay more in FICA, and I will pay the credit card processing fees. Now, what I'll tell you, and this is a little bit going into next time, so I'm not going to give the whole card away, but if you come again, Paul, ask me the question again, and I'll even, Christine, if you could write it down for me, there's a couple other things I'm doing as new initiative ideas that our clients will pay for, that will make up that additional cost for me. Okay, so that's why I kind of went through that box that I showed you earlier, because sometimes I'm just like, cashless, it's gross, I'm not going to touch money, we're not doing it. But it really let me start to go, okay, exactly what do I think they make in tips? How much do I think that's going to cost me? What am I putting through as FICA already, right? Do I think it'll be more? And it allowed me to kind of work that plan so I knew what I needed to make up. And I have directly changed something else in my business, so I will make that up. And I'll share it lightly as environmental stewardship. And we can talk about that on our next call, or if we have time later.
One more that you mentioned, I think, around the topic of going cashless is an app that you pay at the chair. Can you just touch real quick on what that is and how that works?
So my software system, hopefully we'll have live before we start. They have an app built into their software system. So, one of the projects I got accomplished in the 4 weeks I've been home is I set up the app, because it's been on my someday I'll get to list. And guess what? I've had a few days to do stuff. And so now I have a client app, and our clients now know we have it because we've put it in social and we sent out an email to them. And they upload a credit card on file for cancellation policies. We don't necessarily currently use that as charging, but they will be able to authorize this charge from their app, assuming it gets out of development before we open, and we think it will.
And what system is that do you use?
I use Shortcuts, but I don't sell software, and there's plenty others that do. I don't mean sell software, but have that type of app feature. I think Forest even has it. And don't go changing software, because I have another fun thing to talk about next time, and so that you'll have lots of other choices. Okay. Any other questions, Christine?
I think we'll save the rest for the next one.
Perfect. All right. So now what I want us to start thinking about is how we, the next thing is how we minimize I'm getting, oh, that, okay, I'll do that for a minute. How we minimize the cash going out. And what I want us to think about now, very differently than the rest of our time, is we're closed. Unless you are amazing at curbside pickup or, and I think Gino, you are, because I saw lots of pictures of bags that you, I think, were delivering or they were picking up. For the most part, our revenue right now is a big old goose egg. I don't know if anybody would agree with me, but I'm at goose egg. And, you know, the thing that immediately once I locked the doors and began to text clients that were done, that still had appointments, I started to think, okay, I'm going to go at least 2 months without revenue. In the months that I'm closed, what do I need to think about to get my cash going out to be as small as it possibly can? And so I started to think of using my Amex and my Bank of America statement, or TD Bank, depending on the location. What were the things that were reoccurring expenses that had nothing to do with whether I was open or not, but that I get charged every month? I'll use 2 examples. While I called my phone company and they were completely not willing to defer a payment, we all know that they won't cancel our service now if we don't pay. But what was really interesting to me is I said, well, what else can you do? And they looked at my service and they're like, let me send you over to the cancellation team. And I went, okay. And they sent me over to the cancellation team, and I now have $100 less a month service for the same services I had before. Another one that was Yelp. And we do a lot of business in Yelp. So I didn't want to turn our Yelp off. I want people when they're bored to be able to look us up, right? And so what I was able to do with Yelp is while they wouldn't defer payments and I didn't want to shut us down, they're like, wait, I'm like, well, what can you do? And they're like, oh, we have this new promotion for new clients. If you sign up for X, which was actually $5 less than what I was already paying, and I got one service more than I was already paying, then I could get a promotional 2 months free for being a new client. Okay, sign me up. So he transitioned me over. I was able to get 2 months free, even though they wouldn't give me 2 months free. Right? And so again, I'm just thinking the things that happen, whether you're there or not, like the bottom line is what I'm paying for is my rent. And I'll talk about what I do with my rent in a second. You know, I want to pay my utilities because I need my salon software to work and I need my air conditioner to work. And I want to make my salon software operate so I can keep booking appointments and taking appointments, right? But beyond that, if I'm not, like my coffee machine, I lease it because I have an espresso machine and it always breaks. And I called the guys, I said, you have 2 choices, pick it up or don't charge me for it for 2 months. And they're not charging me for it for 2 months because they didn't want to come pick it up. And I'm like, well, those are your choices. It'll be sitting out front tomorrow because I'm closed. And so what I was able to do, and while it's not exact, I've got my rent, you know, my utilities, my insurance, and my alarm company. Those things are coming through as regulars. But the things that I'm now not using because I'm not closed, I'm not open, I'm not paying for. And so again, when we open, there's a whole bunch of different things, but what are those things that we want to minimize while we're closed because we're not operating, and really think down that lane and go from there. Trying to think if there's anything I missed on that one. And you know, guys, I would do the same thing personally. Like, again, I called American Express and I said, hey, can I defer payments? You know, keep in mind you can defer them, but it doesn't mean if you don't make the payment, the card's going to work, which is cool. I just want to know what my options are, right? And so, you know, think about those things, because if you can get no penalty and no interest, the more you can save cash now so that you can invest it when you open, you'll be in a better cash position. The next thing that we're going to talk about, and then I'll take questions at the end of this, is I want us to think about and evaluate our cash position. And here's the reality of it. You know, some of us on this call I'm going to share with you where I think we should be, and you're going to take a deep breath and go, yeah, I'm good. I got that. Some of us are going to chuckle while I review this next part because we don't have that. And maybe I've got, you know, $3 in the account or $1,500 in the account or something negative in the account. But what I want us to think about right now, and as we move to our future, I want this to be the commitment of where we're going to end up down the road. We should always have $3,000 to 6 months of our operating expenses in cash in the bank. Now, I joke with this because if you know me, I set up systems to protect myself from myself. So I have 3 bank accounts. One is my operating account that we pay things through, right? One is my merchant services account that only my merchant services goes in and goes out. And for a couple of my clients who did the same thing I did, the benefit of that is when April's merchant service fees came through, if you move the money out of the account, then they didn't have it, and you could spend it on things you needed to, like payroll. So glad that was able to help a few of my clients. And then last but not least, I call my my working capital account, or my save to spend account. My save to spend account, when I open my bank account online, then you know how your bank allows you to name your accounts? It's called Do Not Spend. That's the name of the account, Do Not Spend. Because I remind myself when I've got money sitting there, oh, I can go buy that. No, this is my Do Not Spend. This is for when the water heater blows up on a Saturday and I need to not freak out how I'm going to spend it and put it on a credit card. So you want to have 3 to 6 months of operating expenses in that account. And let's talk about what operating expenses are. Operating expenses, if you're not sure, and this is where your accountant comes in, so call them. They are the fixed expenses that happen in your business no matter what the sales are. Because again, if I'm efficient at running my business, the things that change when sales change, I can change, right? Like my merchant fee, I just negotiated lower merchant fees going forward. Why? Because I have nothing to do but call people and annoy them. When I say no, I call back later and get somebody else till someone says yes. But how do we start to minimize those things? So when we think about cash in the bank, I want to find all of those regular expenses, my front desk, my rent, my utilities. If I have an accountant fee that I pay every year, I pay mine monthly. Whatever those things are that are reoccurring, I want to be able to take that number, multiply it by 3 or 6, and that's the amount of money I want in the bank. Part of the reason I give you this information, if you don't have it, is if you are able to get a loan, and you do, please don't borrow more than you need, right? A, karma. There's a lot of people that need money right now. B, you have to pay it back. And if you're like me, if I've got 50 grand sitting in an account that I don't need for something, I'll remodel something. I'll do stuff that I didn't need to do coming out of this. And when you get the loan, what I want you to do is once it's paid off, I want you to keep paying that loan to yourself until you have 3 to 6 months of operating cash sitting in your don't spend account. And don't let it go. Like, I hope this never happens to us again, but if we have any other reason why we should have left that money, or God bless you, if you kept that money in that account, now we know why. Okay? So I'm going to take questions again.
Yep, a couple questions. Could you just repeat having separate accounts for credit card sales in, merchant service fees out, and also does that include payroll?
Yep. So I have 3 accounts. I used to have a separate payroll account. I don't do that now. Okay. But going into this, if you're really worried about cash, I mean, it doesn't cost you anything to open a bank account. And if you work with your banker, you usually can get it where you have no maintenance fees, right? It's particularly if you do merchant services or something else with them. I have an operating account that I pay everything out of. Now, when I first opened, I kept a separate payroll account, only because I don't know what my sales are going to be. I knew what my payroll percent plus payroll tax was going to be. So every week sales, I knew that percentage that I paid out, and I took that money out of my sales and put it in my payroll account so it was safe. And then it let me know how much cash I had left. I do the same thing with sales tax, because I pay that quarterly, and I always like, well, how much oh man, it's 13 grand, crap, or whatever it is, right? Because I pay tax on service and retail, yay. So I have my operating account that I pay everything out of. I have a merchant service account that just my merchant services money goes into every day. And my banker actually recommended it just in case there was ever an issue with merchant services, or just in case there was a big transaction that they reversed. It was isolated from everything else, and it was easy to see. And so that's why I did it. I also recommend that you deal with merchant services that the transaction fee, either if it's separate from your software system, that it either comes out by transaction or it comes out monthly. Because otherwise that can creep up on you. And last but not least, I have my working capital account, which I joke and call my do not spend account. And that account is where I keep that 3 to 6 months of operating expenses that I do everything in my power not to spend. But then, separate from something like this, when I had to install a second water heater in one of my salons. When that happens and I need $4,000, I'm not putting it on a credit card and paying interest. I've got $4,000 in that account. I buy the water heater, I install it, and then I make payments back to myself like it's a credit card to put the money back into the account. I use that don't spend account to isolate my sales tax as well. So every month I run my sales tax report and I pay that out every month to my working capital, to my don't spend account, so that I have it isolated and I don't worry about not having it at the end of the quarter.
Perfect. A lot of people are loving this idea and wishing they had thought of it sooner.
I got to tell you, my husband's the saver and I'm the spender. So these types of things helped me not do what I do naturally, and get really structured. I even do it in my personal life. Like I have a separate account for my ATM card. So every month I put a certain amount of money on I call it my play money, on my ATM card. And that's my check card that I get to, woo, dinner out, here we go. Cause otherwise, I go to dinner out every night and then I wonder why I have no money at the end of the month. So it works in a lot of areas of our lives. So I'm glad it's helpful. And again, especially for folks that may not have cash going in or weren't able to get a loan, or, I think for some of us, SBA will apply to us when we retire, because I don't know how many of you have actually gotten a response from them yet. I mean, I filled out the stuff the first day it went live and I got a thank you for applying, and that's all I got. Like, I'm like, so, I have to have a plan. If I only have what's in my account, if I have a client that only has what's in that account to work off of, what do we do with limited cash? And this is how I compartmentalize it so I can stay really focused on what I actually have to spend. Okay. Are we ready for the next thing? No more questions? All right, cool. I'm going to move. All right. So I'm going to do this quickly because I hope everybody knows this stuff already, but I've been amazed how many referrals I've gotten lately with questions about this stuff. So I'm going to do it super duper quickly. There are several lending options for us right now if you haven't applied for them. One of them actually just closed out yesterday and ran out of money, unless the government can actually, work together and refund it, and that's the Paycheck Protection Program. But if you haven't, and again, I'll do this quickly, and if you've got questions, feed them into the chat. The Paycheck Protection Program was something that you can apply for through a bank, not the SBA, and that will give you 2.5 times your payroll, and it can be a forgivable loan. I know some of my clients have already started to get funded. I've been approved, but I haven't been funded yet. And what's going to be super critical on this on the back end is to watch for 2 things. One, you have to use this all within 8 weeks, but I would work with your accountant on what his recommendation is, because I'm going to hold off using it till I open. And we built a financial model based on the criteria, because you have to spend a certain amount on payroll. There's a certain amount you can pay on rent and utilities, and you have to keep a certain head count. And so you're going to need to work with your accountant on how to accurately track this and maneuver it, because anything you fall below that threshold, there's a formula how much you'll have to pay back at, I believe it's 2% interest. And so my accountant's building a template for me right now so that when we are funded, we kind of decided if they don't move the date, it has to be used by June 30th. If they don't move that date and I don't fund May 1st as our first week to pay out, I'm going to have money left over, and I'd rather have it as running room. So we built a model so I could kind of see if this, then why, how much would I owe at the end? I might, and I haven't decided yet because I have to walk through it with my husband, but I may roll the dice that they'll change the date and try to hold off till we're allowed to open. But know what that information is. If you haven't applied for it, I would apply for it. The money's run out, but hopefully our government will refund that position, because it's a great opportunity to get people off of unemployment. And so I think it's it's more of an incentive plan for them to hopefully not have people past July on unemployment that will be able to help us in the future. Also, as it relates to grants and loans, please work with your local government. There's a lot of great grants out there that you can apply for. And any of the loan information you need, you can go to SBA.com and they'll share any of the loans that you have opportunities to. Please also talk with your SBA banker if you currently have an SBA loan, because they do have up to 6 months forgiveness on existing SBA loans where you don't have to make the payments. And that might be super helpful for you as well. And this last one I bring up because nobody talks about it, but they waived the 10% penalty to take money out of your retirement. So I'm not saying anybody wants to take money out of their retirement right now, but I'm also trying to decide between the forgivable loan, would I rather take some money out of my retirement than have to owe somebody money? I don't know yet, right? But it's nice to know it's an option. And again, I'm pushing my accountant daily to keep looking at these scenarios for me so that I can feel like I can make the right long-term choice versus just panicking and taking what I can get, right? And maybe I didn't even know there was something out there I could have got that was a better option for me.
Couple quick questions on this. Just to recap, if your staff is getting unemployment, can they also get money funded through PPP?
No, you have to bring them on board and rehire them. And here's my thing about hiring them. And again, I'm not the one to make this decision for you. I'm just presenting things to think about. If you bring them on board now and start, let's say you got funded this weekend. I had 2 clients that got funded this weekend. Woo, yay for them. If you get funded right now and you're not going to be, and your pause or shelter in place isn't until May 18th, you can't even get them back to work till May 18th at the best. So if you start paying them now, you're not going to have 8 weeks of payroll when you open, right? So when you get this money and you choose to pay them out, you need to bring them back as employees. They come off unemployment. And again, I just want you to know, if the money runs out and you're still not open, then they have to go back on unemployment. Like that's, you know what I mean? Again, use your accountant as your guide here because they're totally into the ins and outs. If you've signed documentation about this, you get a promissory note, make sure they have that as well because they'll read all the fine print, and make them build a tool that you're comfortable looking at so that you know what your choices are. What I've learned in this is I have one salon banks with that I have a great banker I work with, and I will never not have a banker that's my best friend. And my banker will get free hair for, I'm not even gonna tell you how long. Because in this situation, my location that I have a great banking relationship, and I don't even borrow from them. I just chit chat with the girl every time I'm there, right? We've gone to dinner once. She got me front of the line, got me done, called me the minute the website went up. And I got even luckier that she happened to be someone that was made to approve stuff. So she went in and found my application first and approved it. I was like, I love you. Bank of America, I'm one of 8 million people. So it's like, and so sometimes it pays to find the right banking relationship in those medium to smaller size banks so that they can really support us as small businesses. Next question, Christine.
I think you pretty much covered it. Everybody's going to go talk to their accountants after this.
I know, right? My poor accountant has been working. And she was so cute. Her first couple of questions were like, I'm not sure about that. I'm like, you have 24 hours to figure it out because you're supposed to know more about this than me. And she's lovely. All right. So the next thing that I want us to start thinking about here is how we are a resource for our team. And what I really want us to think about here is, guys, imagine the emotions you went through, and then they're probably times 10, right? Because they don't understand what's going on around them. And so we really have to be able to cultivate staying connected with them, giving them hope, positive energy, and really helping them navigate these uncharted waters that we're in right now. And so keep in mind, if they're not on your payroll right now, you can't make them do anything, but we have the opportunity to create some fun things that we can do to keep them connected. And so when I say be a resource for your team, what I want you to think about and be a resource, this could be informational. So for example, as everything started to go left, you know, I was sending, like the day I told the team we were closing, I immediately sent the link out to everyone to how to apply for unemployment. And I stayed in the salons or via Zoom if it was someone who wasn't working. And I helped all of them apply for unemployment. Good thing I did, because those who did it with me got unemployment right away. Those who waited a week or so, because then everybody else, when the mandate came, went on unemployment. Some of them still haven't even heard from anybody in New York to get their unemployment started. This can also be functional or inspirational. You know, think about, like right now, one of the things that we're doing is, if you're on our Instagram, we are allowing our clients to nominate a healthcare worker that's made a difference during COVID-19. And we're going to do free services for several healthcare workers. And I didn't say how many, because to me, it depended how many got nominated. You know, if it was 10, I'd do all 10. If it's 150, okay, I'm probably not doing 150. And I also sent it out through an email to our clients. That was an idea from one of our team, somebody on the team. Hey, I'd love to be able to do this when we open. So I put it in our group chat, and, you know, the team kind of fed off of it and had a good time with it. It might be inspirational. You know, our technical training leads of Shannon have been working on not just dumping every educational opportunity in our group chat, but knowing who our team is and what they need and what they like. We've been trying to really cultivate things that we think they'd be interested in, and will help them go to the next level when we're in the salon, when we come back. And we've got one or two of them that have been so much fun. Every time they watch something, they go, here's what I watched. They put in the link, and then they say, the 3 top things I learned was X. We've got one that's volunteering and delivering groceries for people who can't get out of their house because they're high risk. And so we've been sharing pictures of her on her bike with her basket, because she'll take one and send it to us. You know, and then even that fun, like the first 2 weeks we were closed, I was having them take pictures of their new hobby, right? And like one of our team members, she's going to kill me for telling you this, but she's now making backpacks for cats. Okay, so she has cats, and the dogs get to go out and walk, but the cats don't. So she's making backpacks for cats so that the cats, she can walk with her cats out in this. So I put a great picture on our Instagram of her wearing the backpack that she made with her big old cat sitting in it, like, you know. But again, our mission here is to keep them checked in versus checked out, right? To keep them involved, to make them feel like there's hope for the future, and not have them start looking for something else because they don't know what's coming next. When I say keep the recognition going, somebody on the webinar, but there's too many of you for me to see all of you, is going to roll your eyes and go, we're closed. What the heck am I recognizing? But what I mean in this is, you know, this is an opportunity. You know, for example, when I was sharing all the governmental stuff, we have one employee, Tony Ann, who loves that stuff. Like if she can research something, she is in her heaven. And so as I was shutting everything down and moving clients, she was digging up all the information I needed, got me the New York Department of Labor link, got me the informational link, sent me some videos on what to expect. And so in my group chat, you know, as I started sending something out, I'm like, guys, please give Tony Ann a high five. She's the one that's been sending this stuff to me. So that I can recognize not only that they're checked in and doing something to help, that they're part of a team, particularly when they demonstrate something in our values as a brand, but that I can also keep them doing, you know, keeping up the behavior that I want to see when we're open, right? And it's been fun because now I'm able to see, because they're staying connected. And even if it's fun memes or different stuff, I can now go look and see who hasn't played, right? And so I learned from who hasn't played that we had one of our team members that actually had COVID-19 and I didn't know. And so when I looked and saw I had 2 people that weren't participating, that gave me a way to go, who do I need to connect with? And so I was able to connect with her and see how she was doing. Both of her parents had it as well, you know, and be able to connect with her in a different way so that she didn't feel like she wasn't a part of things and she didn't feel like we didn't care. And I would hate to have this whole thing go by and not know, but because there's a stigma, she didn't really want anyone to know. Now, you know, there's enough people in New York City that have it that stigma's kind of gone away. But you know, I want to be able to see who's playing, who's not playing, and keep them engaged and keep them feeling like I'm caring. last but not least, I'm going to switch gears to drive engagement. And when I think about driving engagement, we've done a lot of stuff talking about the team and how we drive engagement. What I want to switch to with engagement is I want us to start thinking about our clients. And like for me, I've got another 4 weeks to communicate to my clients. What the heck am I going to talk to them about? Right? Like there's only like buy a gift card. But let's start thinking about the things that we can start effectively talking about. And next webinar, we'll get into social distancing. We'll get into how does that relate to our schedule? How does that relate to what we do with cleanliness standards, some new OSHA requirements and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, how do we keep them engaged and fun? And so some of the things that we've been sending out are, one, what have we been thinking about in our business while we're closed and prepping for reopening? So, you know, we've made some changes to our website and I'm 2 pictures short of having them all updated. Yay, hopefully they'll come soon. We launched a new app. You know, we're looking at how we price things differently, and you'll hear that next time. But so, for example, we shared our new app and how it's going to be easy for them and what they can use for it. And one of the things people who download the app is they'll have exclusive specials and offers that only people with the app will get. We had another thing that we talked about is, there any charity things you're doing? Like we talked about the healthcare worker thing on one of our emails. The next email that's going to go out, now that we're starting to get some really good information of, particularly in New York City, what are our requirements going to be? And I'll send a lot of that stuff out to you because mine are probably going to be worse than anybody else's, and anybody else on the call that's in the New York City region. Woohoo! You know, while we like to think we're our own country, I guess we had to be first in this too, right? But you know, we're starting to, unfortunately, I woke up at 3 in the morning and crafted an email on what is social distancing going to look like for us? And how is that going to change how we operate our business? And what does cashless mean? And what are you going to be excited about? And, you know, bring your mask. And here's the thing we're going to have for protective gear and how your service experience might change because of that. So that we can start also getting them excited about an opportunity to come in to see us is still going to be safe with them. You know, we can still talk about specials, gift card things, curbside pickup, but really start thinking about how we start to hit different notes so that we can build momentum with our clients as we get ready to gear up and open. And so I'll share some of those with you for my clients. Every time I send out an email, they get that email as well. So they get everything that I send my clients, the good, the bad, the indifferent, my spell check errors sometimes too. But just to give you some food for thought, and what you might be thinking about. Any other questions in the chat?
Yeah, on the topic of social distancing, they're spacing their stations 6 feet apart, but they're going to face potential lost revenue from not being able to book those extra chairs. Any advice on how to recoup that?
So I'll give you a couple things and then we'll dive into this more next time. But I know it's so heavy on our minds right now. So we're going to have this on Sundays, Saturdays and Sundays. The rest of the week, I think I'm going to be okay, but I'll talk about some of the things we're doing. We're actually expanding our hours. And so, like, for example, on weeknights, we're going to stay open till 10. Shh, my team doesn't know yet. We're still doing fun happy hours before we get into let's talk about what we're going to do when we get back. Because that's going to give me the opportunity, like if somebody has to go into work and they don't get off till 5, by the time they get back to Brooklyn from Manhattan, I can really only do like a single and a highlight client with a haircut at the end of the night, right? That's going to open up one more highlight and haircut experience if I can extend that 1 more hour to be able to fit some of that in that time frame. We are also doing a whole promotion about and I haven't worked out the lingo yet, but on, I'll call it, for lack of a good word, because I haven't marketized it yet, our social distancing special. And we're going to promote really hard our slowest times. Because like for me, I'm the only salon in my neighborhood that at both locations that opens at 9 a.m. Everybody else typically opens at 11. So I typically have a stylist and a front desk at 9, a bunch more people come at 11, and then I split shift everybody else, okay? So that I have, you know, they come in and take the morning shift stations. I'm now going to promote our best social distancing, privacy, and TLC opportunities are in the morning shifts, because phase one, if you watched the news last night, phase one is still going to heavily encourage anyone who can work from home to work remotely. So there's still going to be a lot of clients that are doing what we're doing right now because their business can do that and still operate. So if I can pick off some of them on the weekend and get them into those morning slots because they're home, I can schedule my webinars whenever I want to schedule them. I'll be able to flex some of the, and we're going to offer that to our weekend clients first to try to get them in during those morning shifts. And I think of it this way: if every weekend I can pluck off 25% of those people, eventually those days are going to fill up. The other thing we'll talk about next time is we're also working on a rebooking strategy that's different what we do today. Because the one thing you guys are going to have to think about is if we have a mad rush, everybody that's been paid while we're closed is going to show up to get their hair done. That I believe. What I don't know is what's going to happen for those that have been paid and their companies have been taking no revenue long term. How many of them will still be employed, right? So I believe we're going to have a 2, 3, 4 week rush. But if everybody in our clientele tries to get in 4 weeks, what's our business going to look like the 4 weeks after that? No bueno, right? And now we're going to have this really up and down rebooking cycle that's going to take us 12 to 18 months to get evened out. And so we've got to really start thinking about our services, how we book them, and when we book them, so that we can quickly level that out, so that we don't go high week, high week, high week, ugh, poor, 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 high, 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 poor, 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 till we can, get to a place that we get enough new clients that it fills the gaps. So I hope I gave you a few ideas, and you'll have to listen to some of them more, but I'll give you a little more meat next time. Christine?
That's perfect. And I know you're going to speak more to it next time regarding protective gear. Best recommendations, top line, look up your
bubble. Buy the big giant bubbles. Then we're all 6 feet away. We can just stick our hands out. No, I'm just kidding. I have a friend who actually has one. We're not going to talk about why, but I'm like, can I borrow that? And I'm just going to wear it through New York. No, next time we'll go through all of that. I'm also going to have for you the protocols we're going to be using, that I hope to even have look nice enough that you could post in the salon if you need to, so that you'll kind of have what we're doing. And then I'll also give you a resource guide. Well, if anybody has everything in stock right now, but a resource guide on where you can get some of the stuff, so that we can start to gear up and start thinking about what that means. Okay. And I'll also provide next time for those on the webinar, the new OSHA guidelines, so that you have those as well.
Great.
Christine, any more
questions about when next time will be? That'll be next Friday, 1 o'clock, same time. You will be receiving a link to the registration following this meeting. Again, and we'll send you a copy of this recording so you can view this again.
All right, cool. Any more questions?
Yeah.
No? Okay. So guys, I got a couple things of homework for you. Ha ha. It's just like you're my consulting clients. I always give homework, right guys? First off, if you don't have a budget, it's time to build one. You're not in this alone. Call your accountant, make him do the work for you. He's got all the data. She's got all the data. They can do this, right? Have a plan for if you're the same. Have a plan for if you're not, right? Don't get caught on the back end, even more cash poor because you didn't see it coming. Look at your week every week when you open so that you know what you project. So for example, for me, if I come in on a Monday and I've got 16 grand on the book on Monday in my newer location, I know that we'll end up around 21, 22,000 for the week, right? I'm used to what that book looks like on Monday. If you don't know that now, learn it over the first 8 weeks that you're open so that you can start to be able to project that for yourself better. Identify what working capital you're going to need. Stay connected with your team and be a resource, guys. I know it is so easy to like go in a hermit shell right now. and just wonder what's going to happen. But they need you just as much as you need them. And we need them energized and excited on the back end, but we need them to be smarter. Like, we can't be the same salon that we were when we close, when we reopen. We've got to be a better version of ourselves. And keep your clients engaged. So on that note, before everyone drops off, this is how you reach me. Don't call the 800 number. I need to take that off. I turned it off because no one calls the 800 number. The 202 is my cell phone. Everybody just calls that, so why pay for an 800 number? I would love it if everyone would follow my Instagram. We're going to have videos that we're posting and things like that to kind of keep this conversation alive. But again, if you need me in any way, shape, or form, please don't hesitate to let me know. We're in this together. We are stronger together. We are the most creative industry on the planet, and we have survived depressions, recessions, anything else with an ION at the end. We will survive this as well. We just need to, at this time, for those of us who don't love the numbers, it's time we buck up and learn it, because it's easy. You can, it's not something we can't do, but it's something in this time we've got to buck up and dive in and own it. And I'm happy to help anyone who needs help.
Big thank you from everybody, Allison.
Big Zoom hug. I miss being able to hug people. My poor Nani and Poppy's friends won't come visit them because we're in Florida and we're from New York. So they still think we have the virus. So guys, be well, stay safe. I hope to see all of you in the next week. It's been an honor and a pleasure to help support you in this journey. And if you ever need me, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, till next week.